Here's how you hire the best employees for your business. When you're interviewing someone for a position, ask them what are some of the projects you worked on, what are some of your biggest achievements, what are some of your accomplishments, what are some of the most complicated projects you worked on, and what are some of the challenging projects you worked on. And usually when someone's expert at something, they have the ability to discuss it in great depth, in details. They can really go into the details of how they accomplished something. So you simply ask the question, tell me about a project you worked on, and then listen and see how deep they go. And someone who's really worked on something, and there's someone who's really good on any given area, will be able to speak about any of their projects to in great detail and in great depth. An example would be, let's say you're a network, and this is applicable to any industry. An example, let's say you're a network engineer, and you ask the question, tell me about an issue you worked on. You can speak of a high CPU situation that you worked on and you resolved. And there's many steps to resolving a high CPU issue on a Cisco router. And but then how deep are you willing to go as far as explaining? You could say something as simple as, we had a high CPU on a router, I issued the command show CPU proc, and I resolved the issue. And that's not going really deep into explaining how you solve something. A deep explanation would be, I had a high CPU situation, I issued the command show proc CPU, the outputs showed 90%, showed 10% and 90%, which means it's interrupt traffic. So the 90% was the interrupt traffic. So I knew the high CPU situation had to do with packets coming to the router, packets coming to the device. So I looked at all the interfaces, and I realized interface 101 had drops, had a large number of drops. I cleared the counters, the drops were still incrementing. So I knew the issue was on that interface 101. I configured a span session that would capture all traffic coming from that interface and sending to a laptop running Ethereal or Wireshark. I looked at the packets on the laptop, and I noticed many of these packets had a TTL of 1. I went to Google and I did my research, and I learned that packets with TTL of 1 are not being forwarded at the hardware. They're punted to the CPU, they're sent to the CPU, and that's what increased the CPU utilization of the router. So I identified the server that was sending the information, and I called the server team, and they disconnected that server from the network, and the CPU levels returned to normal. So when you're explaining something, when you ask, tell me about the project you worked on, go really deep into explaining all the steps that went into the solution. Thank you.